Hi Copic in the Craft Room fans, Michelle Houghton here. I am going to be coloring up a digital image today. These are from Tiddly Inks. She has been one of my favorite stamp creators for a very long time. And this is actually a newer set that she came out with recently. We've got llamas. They have hats that they can wear. They have a background that they can sit in and on. And then I love that there's a couple different sizes of llamas. And then also Wryn is included, which is one of Christy Kroll's regular characters. And so it's fun to have Wryn in the image as well. So I'm going to be coloring this up. And as you know, I've done a lot of llamas. And so this time I am going to separate the llama into some splotches. But I'm going to start with Wryn first. So we're starting with skin tones, and I'm using an E50 to base her skin. And then an E53 to add some of that shape in there. So I'm flicking in from the edges to kind of give a rounded shape, then blending back with that lighter E50. I'm using a little bit of E93 for some cheek, kind of rosy cheeks, and then softening those edges again with the E50. Hair is next, and I'm going to use a series of 4 E2s. So I've got E21, E23, E25, E27. I am flicking from the part out and also from the ties out. So those are the directions I'm working in, and all of these are with flicks. As I get into the darker colors, there are fewer flicks. And I'm getting my marker as vertical as I can get it, meaning standing straight up. So I'm using that little tiny tip of my brush nib. After I've got the hair as dark as I want it, sometimes I will go back with 1 or 2 of the colors just to soften. So I've jumped back to the E23, and I'm going from the dark areas into the light, and then I'm going all the way back to my E21, and I'm pulling a little bit further into those white highlights to soften just the edges. I have not lost that texture, but I've softened it. Next thing I'm doing is I'm grabbing an E04, and I am mapping out where the spots and color is going to be on the llama. So I've chosen the lightest color that's going to be in the spots, and then I'm going in and kind of filling those areas in with a very loose kind of scribbly squiggle. And someone asked last time, they said they couldn't see what I was doing. So in a second here, I'm going to move my image away and show you what I mean by a scribble or a squiggle. So when I do a scribble or a squiggle, it's just this big loopy stroke. It is not a scallop. It is not a continuous loop. It is back and forth, so it goes both directions. And there's some points, there's some curves, but it's really tiny. So that is what I'm doing when I do that kind of scribbly, squiggly stroke, and I'm saying that I'm doing that. So next, I'm going to go in with a couple darker colors, E07 and E09. The E07, I just don't do as much of it. You can see now we've got that really open kind of loopy scribble or squiggle. The E09 will come back and try to focus in some of those areas that I do want to have darker, so that we've added some shape in on that llama. I decided I wanted to soften some of that so you don't see all that scribbling, but I didn't want to get it a whole lot darker. So I picked a color that's even lighter than the lightest color I started with, so the lightest was that E04. So I've jumped all the way down to an E93. It's still going to have that peachy undertone, but I'm kind of loosely going over, and it's still kind of in a scribbly stroke to soften some of those edges. So then we've got all this white area on the llama. So I'm going to go in with that squiggly scribble stroke, and I'm filling in those white areas with a W1. That's that warm gray 1. And then I'm adding again some of that dimension and shape, still with that same scribbly stroke, but with a W3. This time to soften, I'm actually going to go in with a colorless blender. Again, I'm not trying to make the texture disappear, so I'm just brushing over it. I let it sit. If I need to do more, I can. And E93 is going to come in on the nose and on the inside of the ear with a little bit of gray in both areas, and the colorless blender to kind of get that soft, smoother area that we know those little animals have. Then I'm heading back over to Wryn because I've got the blanket and I've also got her little outfit. So I've got a B70 that's going to base the majority of that blanket. And these are some people's favorite colors. These blue-green 70s or 7s, they just have this beautiful tone to them. So BG72 is next, adding some of that detail, shape in those creases, softening that up. Going back in, hitting that edge with the darker BG72, and then adding the details with the one darker from that, which is that BG75. E04 and E07 are going to fill in that chevron stripe across the blanket. I was obviously a little too much in a rush because I missed a spot on the llama. So I'm coming back in and getting underneath Wryn's leg and kind of darkening underneath where the blanket is sitting against the llama. So it looks a little bit like a cast shadow. YG91 is basing her little dress. I'm going to use YG93 and 95 to give her some shape. So coming in from her backside forward, a little bit under her arm, and I am coloring her boots with that color as well. I use a little bit of E25 and E23 to do the base of her boot, kind of the sole of her boot, and then these little trim pieces on her dress, kind of like they'd be leather maybe, or a suede and leather outfit that she's wearing. I used the E21 to lighten it up because it was getting a little bit darker, but then she's all ready to go, and she's going to be ready to go on a card. I am going to add a background on this one, and so I will go in and color that, but I'm not going to spend the time on this particular video to do that. I've done a lot of videos where you can see me kind of filling those areas in, but you will see it in the final card. I just want to remind everybody that if you ever have questions about Copics in general or how I'm doing things, please ask below in the comments and I will try to get back to you right away. If you haven't had a chance, hop over to my blog, scrapweaver.com, to see all of the live things coming up in the near future. Thank you so much for stopping by today. Make sure to have a happy, colorful day.